Now, for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, let's bring in Arise analyst Dr. Constance Ikwoku. Dr. Constance, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Yolanda.
Good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Good
Fine,
morning,
thank you.
the man in blue.
Always back on our feet
Yes,
and grinding it down.
yes. How are you today, Gwinga?
I'm good. And you?
Very well, thanks. Very well, thanks. I feel good today. Okay, good to see both of you. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with this day newspaper. In this day, Tinubu moves to fast-track Siemens power project, recommits to stable electricity. EFCC declares ex-minister Timipre Silva wanted over alleged $14.8 million refinery fund. And on the window, alleged $1 billion loan claim. Nestor queries FBN Quest's refusal to provide bank statements. Shoyinka, Nigeria's crisis, not Christian-Muslim war, but battle against extremists. Vanguard newspaper, insecurity, NAF strikes, kill terrorists, bandits in Borno, Kwara, Katsina, and others. There's also that story on Timipre Silva declared wanted by the EFCC. And PDP, pro-anti-convention forces fight as court adjourns case to November 12th. Olubadan and Shoyinka here, and NHRC asking Nigerians to unite against extremism. Moving on to Daily Independent, Tinubu engages regional bodies in insecurity battle. Textile Titans back new board, wants smuggling annihilated. Approved FDPs can unlock 1.7 billion barrels of crude per day. Digital sector expected to attract $1 trillion in investment by 2027, according to minister. Daily Trust, bandits attack 5 vehicles, abduct passengers in Kogi. This is even as NAF was attacking or hitting some terrorist hideouts. FG pushes for Akwaramadu's transfer to Nigeria. And Obasanjo, under my watch, U.S. wouldn't do anything in Africa without our knowledge. The Guardian newspaper, 33 years later, hope dims for safer pipeline supplies of jet fuel to airports. WHO declares 24 million living with diabetes in Africa, and fraud apathy threatening democracy, according to Dixon and Amechi. FG urges calm as Shoyinka northern groups reject Trump's genocide claims, and telecom operators warn of regulatory conflicts in digital economy bill. Leadership newspaper, marketers blame supply hiccups as cooking gas prices surge again. Dangote Fertilizer partners German firm to build license for production units in Lekki. Then Hajj Commission slashes 2027 Hajj fares. The Punch, Trump threats troops pound terror bases in key states. And presidency eyes NMPC shakeup as oil output falters. Over 100,000 policemen assigned to VIPs were being told this morning. There has been that controversy over what the police should be doing, protecting people or moving around with VIPs. Tinubu pushes Siemens deal for fresh 4,000 megawatts power. And finally, New Telegraph on the local front. We also have that story on Trump threats. Then historical mistrust, land grabbing, others triggering violence in North Central, according to the presidency. Reps probe $4.6 billion grant from Global Fund, USAID. And breakthrough as Nigeria joins unified West African power grid. Let's go to the international headlines, and we will start with our newspaper. Future of the BBC license fee in jeopardy as Trump threatens $1 billion legal action. The Independent, BBC says sorry, but Trump threatens to sue for $1 billion. And we have that also in Daily Express. Trump's threat to sue BBC for $1 billion, and you will pay the price for vicious OAP tax raid. Daily Mail, still on Trump, tells the BBC, grovel or I'll sue you for $1 billion. We have that also in metro.uk.uk. The Guardian newspaper, BBC board member with Tory link led the charge over claims of bias. China's CO2 emissions may have peaked early. And finally, let's see Financial Times. Again, Trump issues threat to sue BBC for more than $1 billion over edited speech, and Lloyds used data from staff's personal bank accounts in pay talks with unions. All right, let's return to this day newspaper. There to the lead story, the power sector is center stage this morning as Tinubu moves to fast-track Siemens power project, recommitting to stable electricity. He said something that is instructive also, that there will be no economic development without reliable power supply. All this happened when the president received a delegation of the German company in Abuja, led by its director for Middle East and Africa. So this project is called the Presidential Power Initiative. It was initially launched in 2019 and focuses on transmission and distribution systems to unlock stranded power in our national grid. It's in 3 phases and should help the country reach 25,000 megawatts by upgrading old substations, installing modern control systems, and replacing overloaded transformers. Some progress has been made or recorded at the 0 phase, but this means that there's still a long way to go because we have 3 phases to work on. So great initiative, as the president noted. Reliable electricity is the backbone of modern development, powering industries and digital innovation as well. The lack of it drives up costs and discourages investments, as we already have seen in Nigeria what is happening. But Yolanda, the problem is that there's a lot of ceremonies, photo ops, press conferences. As soon as those cameras go off, we begin to deal with the same obstacles and problems that we've had in the past. So this particular project needs to succeed.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, Dr. Constance. The fact that this initiative was first signed in 2019 is indicative of what you were saying. Why has there been very little action out in the public since 2019 when it was first signed? Earlier on, we took a report by our State House correspondent, Adesua Omoruwan, and she was talking about the reality of Nigerians, how everybody, most people, every day is some level of darkness. There's no electricity. And so if this is such a serious problem for the nation, which we know it is, why isn't expedient action being taken? Why is this project, just being, from 2019, we can't still be speaking about this. By now, there should be some sort of significant progress made in this area. And a second thing I want to point out is just how important it is that we have a functioning national grid. Before, there was talk about how we should rely completely on solar, and we should, put our efforts more into empowering that area by through solar electricity, solar energy. But now I think it's pretty obvious that solar in itself is going, even with that, is going to need a lot more stability in terms of the type of infrastructure around having solar as the only source of electricity in the nation.
Well, that can be really, the future is a mix of different technologies,
yes.
Both old technology and new technology. Even there are, even the government is already making plans to install solar powers in government institutions, but it has to be a mix of different things. But let's quickly go to the second story in this day newspaper. From Timipre Silva and the EFCC. So the former governor has been declared wanted for $14.8 million refinery fund. The Guardian also has this piece, and it titles it, EFCC declares as Governor Silva wanted for alleged fraud. He's been accused of dishonest conversion of this said amount, and it was part of money injected by the Nigeria Content Development and Monitoring Board into Atlantic International Refinery and Petrochemical Limited for construction of a refinery. EFCC has asked that anyone with knowledge of his whereabouts should contact the commission. Well, first it was the raid of his house in Abuja in relation to what was said to be a coup attempt. He was out of the country at the time with his wife. He is still out of the country, and now we're seeing this. His aide says that this is the job of or the efforts of political jobbers, that they are after his boss. So he described this as a political onslaught on the former governor. Benga, your quick take on this.
At the risk of sounding so much appealing to conspiracy theory now, I think the EFCC should play down appealing to playing to the gallery, and also trying to do a media trial, because the whereabouts of Timothy Silva is not hidden. It's quite unfortunate that we're talking about missing $14.8 million, very huge amount of money that could have fixed the refinery. Because I remember that in 2019, $1.5 million was said to have been earmarked to revamp the Port Harcourt refinery. But having said that, I've been saying here the conversation, the narrative from former President Obasanjo when he tried to revamp some of these refineries, and he brought some people after Shell showed reluctance that the corruption in that sector is among us, and it cannot dip its hand into that corruption that stinks to what we call the high heavens. And the president had to initiate a partnership arrangement with Dangote and some partners with an investment of about $750 million. But when Yeredra came up in after President Obasanjo's regime, they called for an investigation on that privatization deal, and they said that it was not transparent enough, and the due process was not followed and all that. And President Obasanjo said something that was very instructive, that that government cannot run this refinery. Decades down the line, what have we seen? Millions of naira going down the pipeline. We all know the aide to Timothy Silva said that he will turn out. He will turn up for EFCC's investigation when it's done with his medical checkup abroad. So he has not been served any notice. I think that the EFCC should learn to follow due process rather than adopting a Gestapo operation that would appeal to the gallery and set him up on a media trial, because a suspect, let's forget, is deemed to be innocent until proven guilty. So let's have a transparent process that would show that we are a serious-minded nation that is ready to deal with corruption. Not after the coup event that came up 2 weeks ago, then we now remember that someone had stolen. That's like an afterthought step. So we should avoid this knee-jerk approach that plays to public sentiments.
So there is that, when you talk about his aide saying that they were not communicated, there was no official communication to the effect that he should answer summons to the EFCC before he was then declared wanted. And let's also say that the EFCC has taken a step even further in some reports saying that they have put the FBI, the National Crime Agency, and the International Police, the Interpol, on alert, to arrest Mr. Silva wherever he is found in the world. He is currently in the UK, according to him, or according to his aide, on medical checkup. But this issue now is not about Port Harcourt refineries. So this money, $14.8 million, is the money that was invested by the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board for the setting up of a new refinery. Yes. So what they are saying is that this money was invested by the government some 5 years ago, and the refinery has not materialized. So there was an investigation conducted by the House of Representatives into why we have this sum of money put aside for a refinery, and that refinery is yet to be seen. So that's what this is about. So apparently silver is involved somehow in the monies that we are talking about here. Again, we will hear more. I mean, this story will eventually unravel. Whether silver comes back to Nigeria, we don't know whether he will come back and, you know, present himself to the EFCC. It will be a running story, and we will be bringing that to you. Okay, let's see a Daily Trust newspaper. Or actually, we have one more story in this day newspaper. Let's take this newspaper. Let's take that quickly. So Shoyinka, Nigeria's crisis is not Christian-Muslim war, but battle against extremists. In this article, the Nobel laureate explained that political leaders have exploited religion for power in Nigeria and failed to hold extremists accountable, which has allowed impunity to thrive. He mentioned cases such as the lynching of a student accused of blasphemy, and that her killers went unpunished even when that was on video. It says such strengthens the perception of a brutal war going on between Christians and Muslims in Nigeria. So again, Yolanda, this will be an ongoing conversation, as it has always been in Nigeria. For many, everything is seen from the prism of religion, ethnicity, and control for resources. And so we live in a country where leaders are yet to rise above that. And so we continue to see that impunity defines everyday life in Nigeria. Very quick comment.
Very quickly, I was hoping that you were going to link the story together with the Obasanjo one, because I
okay,
feel
so
like
let me go to the Obasanjo then. So let's pull up our Daily Trust newspaper. Obasanjo, under my watch, America couldn't do anything in Africa without our knowledge. This statement from the former president seems to be a veiled response to the current designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern by the United States. So Obasanjo, who was known to be good friends with late U.S. President Jimmy Carter, said that Carter would not have done anything in Africa without informing him. Obasanjo noted that America once showed Nigeria or saw Nigeria as a leader in Africa, but lost confidence at some point. He said when he was military head of state and then civilian president, the 3 American presidents came to Nigeria. So former president, you know, is he's saying something that we already know, insinuating that the global stature of Nigeria has diminished over the years. And I think this morning he's giving everyone a food for thought, and also giving a food for thought, you know, to the current political leaders or current class of politicians in Nigeria as to where we are today. Yolanda.
So here's the link that I was trying to make. I think that the narrative about what is happening in Nigeria domestically is, for the larger part, agreed upon. Everybody is kind of speaking with the same voice despite having different political affiliations. And this statement that was brought out by former President Obasanjo is really indicative of Nigeria's history and, you know, Nigeria's status within the region and in Africa. People have always known Nigeria as, you know, as it said, the giant of Africa. So him saying these statements does ring true. What he does allude to as well is the relationship that he had with former President Jimmy Carter, just as you have very well already stated. I remember when he passed in December of last year, former President Obasanjo put out a statement about how close his relationship was with him and how such good friends they were outside of the political arena. And, you know, it's really true that relationships are very important. Diplomacy is very important, especially when it comes to such issues that are of sensitivity, especially with this CPC thing. It's way out of control at the moment with what Trump is threatening, with all that he is saying. And I believe that if there was a much better relationship between the Americans and Nigeria, which we all believed there was, we wouldn't be going through such a rigorous and kind of tough conversation. It would have been a lot smoother, a lot more diplomatic.
Wow.
And so,
I mean, he's already said it. I mean, it speaks to the waning global stature of Nigeria, whether
absolutely.
it's regionally or continentally or on the world stage. And this has happened over the years because of a number of reasons. There's inconsistent foreign policy, there's economic mismanagement, there's poor governance, there's instability and insecurity that is going on in the country. All this has affected Nigeria. So the point then here is, do we want to move from here to change the story and the narrative? If we want to change the narrative, it's not enough to just make statements and make declarations. It would actually take a lot of work and good governance and making sure that the economy turns around. So, I mean, the ball is in our court, and leaders and also, or political leaders have a a lot of work to do.
I think Carter and Trump are two different personalities, so it's worked in two different ways.
Absolutely.
I think Trump would have had the similar relationship with even President Obasanjo.
Absolutely.
That's not denying the fact that President Obasanjo command a lot of enormous goodwill in the international community.
Yes, very true.
But nevertheless, we have a Trump who is very, very defiant and rambunctious in his posture.
Well, this has more to do with Nigeria than Trump, actually. All right, let's quickly see leadership newspaper. Civil service to go paperless by December 31, according to the federal government. So the federal service will then transition to what they call the iGov cloud platform by this date, as efforts to digitize the operations. By this date, all ministries, agencies, and departments are expected to base their workflows on this digital platform. And the head of the civil service of the Federation is very excited about this. I mean, it's good. It's about time. It's about time. There's so many benefits, cost reduction, more efficiency, transparency. It will also make sure that, ensure that we don't have, records that are being tampered with, because we have incidences of tampering with files and records because people are carrying papers from one office to the other. So let's see how far this goes, but it definitely will reduce the challenges that we face. If we want a 21st century civil service, which is the engine of the government, actually, you want a digitally driven civil service. A Vanguard newspaper talks about insecurity, NAF strikes, kills terrorists and bandits in Borno, Kwara, Katsina State. We cannot get to that. So let's quickly do one story on the international front before we go. Let's pull up the Times newspaper. BBC is told, say sorry or Trump will sue for $1 billion. Very quick on that, Yolanda.
So let me just note quickly that this is not the first time that Trump has gotten broadcasters to, pay up compensation for things that they have said and done wrongly in his eyes. It's very sad to see how this is unfolding for the BBC, and I'm sure it must be very embarrassing for them as well to be going through this and to be reporting it as well.
It is humiliating.
Now, Trump has given up until Friday to get a response, and I want to touch on something that is the most standout thing about this report from me. If a payout is actually made to Donald Trump for this $1 billion, that money is going to come from license fees payers, which means that this is public money. So it's going to touch everybody. All those licenses, just as I think last week we had a similar report where we were talking about license fees, and people have been talking about how they don't know that license fees have to be paid for televisions. Well, this is it. Those license fees, if this amount is to be paid, but for the Brits, is going to be going straight to the pocket of Donald Trump of $1 billion if the BBC does not comply.
Well, for the BBC, it has always been license fees. It is license fees from every British person that flows the BBC.
Absolutely, but
and that's why they're talking about.
It's not widely known knowledge. That's why I had to point that out. It's not known and spoken about widely.
Okay.
Nigel Farage had said that maybe they have to start looking at the other option, which is Netflix type of subscription.
Wow.
Anyway, we'll have to leave it there. Those are your headlines for today.